Thank you for joining us here for the first panel. My name is Anuj Desai. I am a lawyer and host of the Cannabis Conversation podcast. I just want to say I'm really proud and honoured to be part of this day. I deal with a lot of the industry, quote unquote, and it always saddens me how patients are often overlooked in that conversation. So I'm hoping that we have a good exchange of ideas here and ultimately help widen patient access for medical cannabis in the UK. So, got a great selection of speakers here. I'll briefly introduce them, but then I'll hand over to them to tell you a bit more. Firstly, I've got Clark French here, who is a patient and long-time activist. I have Emily Carkeet, who is the parent of a patient. I have Dr. Sunil Arora, who is a prescribing GP. And I have Alexandra Carstea, who is from Romania and is a carer of a cancer patient and activist. And finally, I have Kirsty Morrisson, who is head of relationships for Cancard and also the patient herself. Really great lineup here, lots of good info to share. We're going to be talking a bit about the different ways that people medicate with cannabis, in particularly some of the differences between what's available on the legacy market and what's available through clinics. The regulated market has lots of rules and standards for products and distribution, but does that ultimately lead to better products for patients? Before we get started, we had a bit of an online poll in relation to this panel. We asked how many people have a prescription and how many people medicate with legacy cannabis. Ashwin, what were the results?
Hold on a second. Let me just quickly run that poll because let's have a look. Sorry, I didn't get the quote. So everybody online, you have a poll that's just popped up now. Everyone's answering. We've got so many people online. Let's have a look. And I think we're almost, let's see. We have 75 of 109, 69. Everyone's answering.
Anticipation. Who wants to own up to
somebody's
buying
asking
weed
why can't I prescribe with both? But okay, so which one applies to you? I have a medical cannabis prescription. I medicate with cannabis without a prescription. I do not medicate using cannabis. So overwhelmingly on our channel, 48% of respondents have a medical cannabis prescription. 28% medicate without a prescription, and 24% do not medicate at all.
Very interesting. There we go. The survey says. Okay, cool. Thank you, Ashwin. So, look, before we get into the main questions, why don't we give everyone a chance to introduce themselves properly and tell you a bit about your background and your relationship with medical cannabis. Clark, do you want to kick us off?
Yes, please. Hello, everyone. My name is Clark. I am 37 years old these days, and I've been campaigning for wider access to cannabis medicine since 2010, when I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Cannabis has absolutely changed my life, and I have dedicated my life to trying to change the law.
Thank you, Clark. Thank you, Clark. Emily, do you want to?
Hi, I'm Emily. My daughter Clover is 3 years old. She's been treated with a prescription cannabis for her severe epilepsy for the last 2 years. She's doing fantastically well as a result, and we couldn't be more grateful for the people that we've met that have introduced us. I'm also one of a group of parents who've recently set up a charity, Intractable, who are based solely on helping parents like me fund the extortionate bills that come along with a private prescription.
Thank you, Emily. Sunil, over to you.
I'm a pain specialist by background. I'm probably one of those doctors you'll meet when every other doctor's had a go, not been able to help you. So I always pride myself on the fact that I listen to my patients. So when things weren't working for them, I'd often ask them, well, what are you doing? You're still functioning, but how are you doing it? And years ago, a few patients would admit to cannabis, and I just started hearing it. I'll change. I just started to hear it a little bit more and more, and I got to a threshold where I thought, there's something in this. I need to, if I am true to my core and really want to help patients, I need to find out more about this. And unfortunately, there was no information in the UK at all at that point. And I had to go abroad to other doctors, and I spoke to doctors abroad and people who I really trusted, and they said that there is something in it. It doesn't work all the time. It works in some people, and so I think you should give it a go. So I educated myself outside of the NHS. It was very much I'm doing this for the patient's mindset. And I thought, I'll have a go at this, and if it doesn't work, I can always leave. But what's happened is, my real passion is cancer pain and helping people live longer or helping them through that process. And I get to do some really great procedures and sort of push the boundary a little bit. And cannabis has helped me do that with my patients. And now I think I was at a conference just yesterday, and now I'm prescribing. I'm one of the biggest prescribers in the UK. I help lots of doctors prescribe. I talk to lots of patients. I educate patients about cannabis now as well. And I think the development forward is that we have to prove that this works, and that's the difficulty that doctors are having right now, or getting other doctors on board. So I think I had 3 minutes, and that was probably a little bit longer.
Thank you. No, it's really, really valuable to hear about that journey as well. Alexandra, all the way from Romania.
Hello, all of you, and I'm very honored to be here with you today. Yeah, I come from Romania, and I have a lot of friends here today, so I feel very connected to you all. I really hope that I will gather more and more friends from UK for our cause in Romania. So a few words about me. Actually, I tried to save my mother's life. She died in 2019, but she had like a longer and healthier and joyful life using medical cannabis illegally, unfortunately. Like the medical system said that she will live only a few months. She was terminally ill with cancer, and she lived almost 5 years. So since then, I'm fighting in Romania for the cause. I initiated a national petition in Romania, and the national petition gathered quite a few signatures. So in 2019, after my mother died, I convinced a politician in Romania who initiated a bill. So the law now is called the Victoria Law. Victoria was my mother's name, as in English means victory. And so it passed already the Senate, and now it should be discussed in the Chamber of Deputies, which is a decisional chamber in our parliament, but we're still waiting since 3 years ago. I'm founded an association which is called Victoria Mea Association, after my victory, after my mother's name, as I told you earlier. And we're doing a lot of things, and mainly I'm here because, as I told you, I have a lot of friends, and I want to thank Professor Barnes and Hannah Deacon and Professor David Nutt and Sarah Sinclair and a lot of people I know here. I'm so sorry if I forget to mention someone, but they helped me a lot in Romania. So Professor Barnes already had like 3 courses with medical professionals in Romania, and I hope that I will get you on board as well, and other doctors as well. So I really appreciate your help, and I want to be also helpful for you if it's possible. And I feel so emotional because when I heard you, Clark, for me, everything about this fight is about the feeling that I had since the beginning. You're fighting for your life and your health. I fought for my mother's life, and it's a lot of pressure, and it's a lot of hard work and a lot of stress we're putting into this effort in Romania, UK, and all over the world. And I really hope that if we have this common voice, we can become stronger and stronger, and we have to convince the authorities that we have the right to use the treatment. So thank you, and thank you for being today and for listening to me.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexandra. And yeah, appreciate that. Kirsty.
I can't believe you're going to make me go after that.
Follow that.
Thank you very much, Anuj, and thank you again to MedCan Support and to Drug Science for putting this conference on. Hugely important for patients to come in and talk to us, so really, really, really happy to be here. Thank you. I'm Kirsty Morrisson, I forgot to say that. Head of Relationships at Cancard. I've been working for Carly for 1.5 years now. And prior to that, I was in the industry in Canada. So I have some experience in management and VP in a Canadian LP. And yeah, that's me.
Thank you. So, yeah. All very passionate and emotional stories. And I think we're going to have some good insights here, so thank you all. Just so everyone know, we have a short Q&A session at the end of this, so if you want to get involved, please do then. So Clark, let's start with you, actually. So you've been a long time activist, as we mentioned, since 2010. And so you've seen a lot of changes of how people are medicating, how it's changed over time. Let's maybe talk about products available and the choice of products. Yeah. Are there differences between what's available in the legacy market and what's available through clinics? And
absolutely.
How's that changed over time?
Well, first and foremost, I should say, I was diagnosed in 2010 with MS, but I always enjoyed cannabis growing up. I always preferred it to alcohol. When I was at university, it meant that I could do my work, I could get on with things, I could pass, and then I could have an enjoyable time. So I was a cannabis consumer way before I knew I had MS. So that changed things. Becoming a patient changed things, and then now becoming a legal patient has changed things as well. I think first thing to say is absolutely the legacy market is not able, the prescription market cannot match the legacy market. The growers in the legacy market, the expertise in the legacy market, the care and love that goes into it in the legacy market, not always, but if you know the right people, the quality is vastly superior to anything that I've tried on my legal prescription. However, legal protection is priceless. So I'm now a father. I was kind of digging my heels in. I was like, no, I don't like this system. I'm not going to get a prescription. I'm going to carry on the good fight. And no, that's who and I felt my identity was being threatened by it. But then I had my son, and then I realized, hang on a minute, it's not just me anymore. It's actually more important than that. It's actually my child. Like, I grew up with a parent with MS, medicating illegally, and that scared the absolute shit out of me when I was 7 years old. Yeah. And for that change to happen and to have it legal, to know that I don't need to worry about my son, that is life-changing. However, is the quality where it needs to be? Absolutely not. Irradiation, no thank you. I think it's the vastness of the industry. It's like there's these huge scale operations that just the love and the time and the attention just doesn't go into each individual plant. When I was in California and Colorado, I saw the operations there, and yeah, they are big, but they have a lot of people looking into it, hands-on looking into it. It's hand trimmed, for example, not machine trimmed. Like I think a lot of the cannabis on the market at the moment is machine trimmed, and you can tell because it's still got big stalks on it, and you know the quality has a lot to be desired, if I'm honest with you. But the fact that we're here doing this, talking about this, having a legal cannabis vaping zone out the front, I think we can say firmly that the patients and the parents of patients, especially the parents of patients, have really made a difference. And that, you can't deny that. Yeah.
There's loads of stuff I'd like to pick up on there. But firstly, very interesting that you're a recreational user and then became a medical patient. And that
was I?
Oh, well, exactly. Yes, that one's a bit blurred, and we'll probably talk about that in a minute as well. I guess, have you noticed any kind of improvement in the quality of product available through clinics?
Yeah.
Are licensed producers learning? Are we?
Well, I think so. I think they definitely are realising that UK patients do know what they're on about, and they buy one batch of cannabis that they don't like, and they're not going to buy it again, and that's going to stay on MedBud Wiki as available for the entire time that medical cannabis has been legal. So that's the situation that we're in. Some companies are doing better, some companies are innovating and want to do different things, but it's such a new industry that we're just at the very, very emerging points of it. So what's going to happen, I couldn't tell you, but yeah. I know that is definitely going to happen with everyone in this room. When I first started, honestly, there was no one. I was diagnosed with MS, I went online, and I went, because my stepdad took cannabis, right? So I was like, I know, I'm going to look up cannabis and MS. There was no campaign group, there was no organisation. The Legalised Cannabis Alliance website was down. To be here, 12 years on, with all of you, not on my own anymore, it's amazing. So I want to thank all of you for being here too, because without you, this wouldn't be happening.
Yeah. Thank you, Clark. Appreciate that. Kirsty, I was going to go to you next, but actually I might just jump to Emily because you brought up the important issue of being a parent and a carer and legality, and that's something you and I were talking about just before. You know, maybe, you know, the question I wanted to ask is around consistency, but maybe you can bring in other aspects of being a parent and perhaps legality. You know, what's been your experience through the clinic system, particularly around consistency, but maybe you can talk about those other aspects as well.
Sure. I mean, before I move on to that, which I will, leading on from your point actually, as a parent of a child with epilepsy, there's a lot of issues around that point. From my point of view, buying anything that's not prescribed is out of the question. It's frightening. There's a risk that my child's going to be taken away from me. Not just that, I'm putting cannabis into a tiny 14-kilogram body. The dosing is so unbelievably specific that I can get it so wrong so easily. And that's so detrimental to her. She's nonverbal. She can't tell me how she feels. I have to assess her behavior and any changes in her behavior and then try and change that accordingly. I'd love to be able to take advantage of the better product that's out there, but we are so limited to anything that's prescribed that we just don't have the option to do that. Moving on to the clinics, the choice is far too small. I mean, Clover has done absolutely fantastically on cannabis. She's been on the same product for 2 years. She's obviously dealing with a bit of a tolerance issue at the moment, but the options for changing are so small. The one product that we would change to is not going to be available come January. Other products aren't quite the same standard. Where, you know, the full extract options out there are just nil. So we've either got the choice now of sticking with what we're doing and balancing a dosing, which is what we're trying, or we get the choice of going to the black market. We can go back to over-the-counter, but she needs THC, and the only place we can get THC is legally, because there's too much for a risk for us to do it otherwise. So it's not where it should be.
Yeah, and so it's predominantly CBD based product, but with a tiny bit of THC in it.
Yeah, she takes very high CBD, very low THC, but the THC was definitely a game changer for her, even though she takes very, very tiny amounts of it.
Yeah, and there's specific products that work as opposed to other products available, and so it's essentially there's not enough choice of that.
There's not enough choice.
Profile.
I mean, we started Clover on an over-the-counter oil when she was 4 months old. Not because we were trying to get seizure control back then, because we actually had it, but because other parents with children with the same genetic disorder that she has told me that it would be great for her development, that it would help to heal her brain from everything that she was going through. So we did it. The doctors told us we were crazy and we were wasting our money, but I said I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. And a girl that we were told would never walk or function. We were told she'd be in a wheelchair for the rest of her life, that her cognitive abilities would be nil. She crawled at 9 months. She walked at 13 months. She's funny. She's happy. She's crazy. And she's just doing so wonderfully. And I honestly believe that cannabis is to thank for that.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. So, Kirsty, back to you now. So you're obviously a patient yourself, but you represent a large patient community. We're going to talk about quality now. Obviously Clark gave his views on legacy versus prescribed, but what's your experience, both personally, but also the community that you represent?
Thanks, Anuj. So, yeah, I would echo what Clark very eloquently said, and he put it probably better than I can. At the moment, we're facing a situation where a lot of people who have prescribed medicine are facing issues such as spider mites, bud rot, mold, powdery mildew. And as we all know, that's just not good enough. It's just not good enough. So in terms of a comparison to the legacy market, I mean, it's difficult to justify the differences in the flower. Now I'm discussing flower here. I mean, it's different for things like oils and sprays, and lots of medicines are different. But in terms of the flower quality profiles, if you compare legacy or different types of markets, and again, that's not all legacy cannabis. There are issues in black market cannabis, such as mold, such as bud rot, powdery mildew as well. But in terms of prescription flower, what I hear and see is that the quality is just not there. And unfortunately, that means that quite often people will go back to the illicit market to source their medicine, which, as far as I'm concerned, is just not good enough. So that's what I would say about the quality. I think the market's also spoken. I mean, we have approximately 30,000 prescribed products now in the UK, with roughly 12,000 patients monthly recurring. And to me, that speaks for itself. I mean, the market has spoken. We can't get people prescribed to come back monthly and get the same quality product every month. They end up going back to the black market, and just a situation that's just not good enough right now.
Yeah, and it's worth sort of delving in a bit. Yeah, don't be shy on the applause. It's worth diving. It's worth probing that a little bit on the black market side. It's not all just dodgy guys in the park, with baggies, right?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, illicit.
You're right.
Apologies.
Legacy.
Yeah, legacy. So, yeah, it's not that kind of cliche. Are there genuine illicit market suppliers who focus specifically on medical?
There are, absolutely. There are ethical sources of illicit cannabis, yeah. Ethically sourcing illicit cannabis is a big difficulty. I'm not going to sit up here and say if you buy it from the illicit market, you're not feeding into county lines, because you may well be funding bad things, unfortunately. But yes, absolutely. The other side of that coin is that there are ethical growers and suppliers in this country who really do know what they are doing. I mean, their hands are dirty, their nails are covered in mud, right? These people have been growing for years. They know how to, as Clark said, put the love and effort into the plant, and that for some patients is key. So absolutely there are ethical sources of cannabis. Unfortunately, they're not open to everybody in the UK though, so that's a major problem. It kind of depends on where you are, where you live, who you can text, those types of things.
Yeah.
You know, not everybody can get an ethical source, and
Yes.
that's something we'd like to change.
Yes. Thank you, Kirsty. Cool. Sunil, now you. So let's talk a bit about the prescribing process. What's the process you go to when you're assessing a patient? Why would you prescribe flour versus oils, for example, and why would you choose between a certain type of flour and another type of flour?
So I wouldn't call it a prescribing crisis, is the first thing. We're at the stage where we're able to prescribe, and there's a number of doctors who are able to do that. The process at the moment is that you go to your GP, you get something called a summary care record to prove that you've been on previous medications, because it's not first-line therapy, although I know a lot of people in the room would say it should be, but and maybe I'd put it up a little bit higher, but the rules at the moment are that you've had to have tried at least 2 other medications, and once that's proven to your prescribing doctor, as long as there's nothing to counteract that prescription, then you can be prescribed. And then it's up to that individual doctor to decide how they're going to prescribe. So if you were going for any other medication, say it's not cannabis, say it was whatever medication it is, what I want to be able to do is give a dose, get the same reaction, and get the same result time after time after time. And that's what you want as a mum, and that's what I want as a doctor. And so in order to get that, the method of delivery for those 2 things is that normally you have something that acts for a long time, and then you've got something else that, should things get a little bit skew whiff and not go quite right, you've got something else to fall back on in those situations. And I suppose the traditional way of that happening is that you're on an oil, because if you consume that, it gets converted in the liver, it can go to something that's a lot more longer acting, and then you can have flour in certain instances to cover those times where you get breakthrough pain, or where that, I'm specifically talking about pain here, where it just comes out. And as I said, I've treated lots of patients both with really bad cancer pain, and those patients, the way I've controlled their pain is via oils initially, and they maybe take 10 grams a month, if that, in order to manage that specific pain. So usually it's the oil and flour combination is the most combination. I've taken people from 7 grams a day to oil, okay? And we've got to be very open about having that conversation with patients as well, because although there is a legacy market out there, it's difficult. I don't know. I think there's another way to do it that everyone has to be open to try and see if there is another method that could work for patients in that scenario.
And again, that's a really interesting point. So for people who have been sourcing on the legacy market, you have a previous relationship with it. Is that quite a challenge to sort of change that profile of consumption? If you believe in from a medical perspective that could help their condition? Yeah,
I mean, as the motivation for the patient has to be there, that they want to improve, they want to get somewhere. We set some goals. We then have the conversation about oil and flour, and most of the time people are open to that. Some people aren't, and they will say that, look, I've tried an oil, I've tried this oil, I've tried this oil. But people are very willing to change flour brands, but I think you also have to be willing to change oil brands if there's something that's not working for you.
Yeah, it's interesting. And also going back to an earlier point you made around it being a prescription of last resort, is that what you described it?
Well, you have to have tried 2 previous medications.
Are people supplementing, so sort of continuing the existing medication, but using cannabis for symptom relief in a way?
You mean outside of
Well, I mean, I guess through the clinic, are you allowed to, if someone is using sort of pre-existing prescribed products but wants some symptom relief, are you not allowed to prescribe it?
It's normally up to the doctor. It then comes down to the doctor. Those things are guidelines. Most people would adhere to them because of the situation that we're in.
Yep.
I think someone showed a great slide the other day, and the first doctors that are prescribing, it's like going across a river in the Serengeti. So one doctor will go. If they get eaten up by the crocodiles, no one else is going to follow. But some people have to go across and say, look, it's okay over here. You can come along.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
But we're still, there's only a few on the other side at the moment.
Yeah, not enough. Thank you, Sunil. Cool. Alexandra, so let's talk a bit about Romania. Maybe you can give us a bit of background on what's the situation there, and particularly, I don't believe that you can get cannabis prescribed through clinics, so I guess it's all legacy market that people are relying on. How does that kind of work in practice?
Yeah, so I was listening to Dr. Sunil, yeah, and I remembered the ordeal my mother has been through, because she was a cancer patient and she had like terrible pain. And the story I didn't mention before was that actually she was on opioids, and she had like a cocktail of 6 or 7 opioids, and actually she had no quality of life, and she didn't eat, she didn't speak, she didn't recognize us, and actually the pain was not controlled. And to that point, everyone was saying, the medical professional said that she will die very soon. And that was the point when I actually found out about cannabis. And first of all, I read about Professor Meshulam, and then from Israel, and then Cristina Sanchez from Spain. Maybe you know her, she's a famous biochemist. And she gave me a lot of hope, because in her trials, in preclinical trials, she had like very good results on cancer, on mice who had tumors. So if you don't know her studies, please read them. They are wonderful. We don't speak so much about cancer. We don't have so much proof. But I believe that there could be a very good treatment also for cancer. So what I wanted to say is that the medical system in Romania actually said that we should just wait and see her, how she dies in horrible pain. And I refused to do that, so I actually bought cannabis. I didn't know anything about cannabis, so Clark said about being used to cannabis, but I wasn't. So I was a lawyer actually in Romania back then, and my father was a judge, a penal judge. So you can imagine, in my house, we didn't speak about cannabis. We only spoke about cannabis like an illegal drug. And actually, as you may know, Romania has like a rigid mentality still, unfortunately, even though we have a very nice generation, new generation coming, but we still have problems with the mentalities. And you can imagine that I didn't have any help from the medical community, nor from the press. This is like, I saw here in UK that you had some support from the press. I didn't in the beginning, and everyone was just saying, don't speak about this, Alexandra. I don't know, I don't want to hear anything about cannabis, how you're procuring. I want to know what you're doing to your mother. And some of the doctors were saying that I'm going to kill her if I'm going to give her cannabis. So it was horrible, because actually, in order to treat her, I had to learn by myself for, I don't know, I read day and night, a lot of stuff, a lot of courses, a lot of materials. I talked to a lot of specialists from United States, from Canada, from Israel, from, in order to, as you said, it's so difficult to medicate the person you love, because, you have to take the responsibility, and no one was supporting me. So I didn't have anyone to ask in Romania, like, for help. But actually, I did something very intuitive, as someone told me later. Whenever I increase the dose of cannabis, CBD and THC, I decrease the opioids. And actually, in a very short time, I mean a few days, if I remember correctly, she regained the capacity of speaking, of eating, of, she was like a different human being in a few days. I mean, she was off opioids until the moment she died. And it was like, for me, what I wanted to say is that you probably know people who are using opioids have problems with a lot of, internal other organs. My mother has he was on the verge of failure kidneys. She was on the verge of dialysis. And the doctors also said that with all her pain and her cancer, she had to be on dialysis as well, because the kidneys didn't function anymore. So I refused to do that. And what I want to say is that, it was horrible because we didn't know what to procure, where to find it. But what I want to stress out is that once I decided that I have to bring her cannabis, I found a lot of networks in Romania, a lot. I mean, there are a lot of patients who are procuring from the black market, legacy market. But, we don't know for sure what they are procuring. We don't know for sure what we are giving to our loved ones. And I remember I discovered the source from Spain, which was very expensive, but also very good. I can feel it, smell it. I was already a specialist in no time, but it cost a lot. So I actually. I had a lot of fear about the system. We can go to jail in Romania still if we're using this illegally. But, no, it wasn't, because my father was very strict as well, and he didn't approve in the beginning. After a while, after he saw that my mother improved, he was totally against. So I was only doing this with my mother, and that's it. So my mother assumed it, and she changed her life, and she had a very good relationship with me. So it was like a synergy there. But what I want to tell you is that when I found about the good quality that I gave her to my mother, then a lot of patients called me. So I risked a lot, and many people in Romania do the same as me, because you are trying to help others. So actually, I think that we were criminals back then, because we were like drug trafficking or something, And it was horrible, because whenever I expected, I was waiting for the package to come, I was thinking, so now when I'm going to take the package, maybe I will be arrested, or what, I didn't know. But the good thing was that I was already known in Romania, because I had this petition. So people were signing the petition. I gave some interviews already. So I was thinking all the time, if they are going to arrest me, I'm going to the media and I will speak about it. And I don't give, I cannot speak like this here. But I was like,
Feel free.
Yeah, I was like, nothing else matters. Only your loved one matters. So, I was fighting for it.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really brave, a lot of the serious challenges, but echoes a lot of the work that many people in this room have done. Sunil, have you got a...
Yeah, I just wanted to add something there. It's a beautiful story, and I'm sorry you had to go through that to get that for your mother, but you've been very brave to do that, and I commend you for that. I think we all have a responsibility here, both as patients, as doctors, because we need to be able to prove this works. And part of being able to prove this works is you've got to let the clinics or the doctors get this data to be able to prove it, because that proof is not out there right now. And I'd just like to say that to everyone here, that get a prescription, because then we can prove it for everyone, and then there'll be more stories like yours that we're able to tell, and we can treat more people with it.
Yeah.
May I add something? I just want to say that I admire you a lot, you, Professor Barnes, and a lot of doctors here. And I'm so sorry that I cannot say so. I mean, I don't know so many doctors in Romania who want to risk and I don't know, become the voice of the medical community. So everyone in our country plays in the safe mode, you know, so they're not speaking about the necessity, even though we have a lot of doctors who have patients who are treating themselves with cannabis, and they see the good results, even though I know oncologists who know the people who are treating themselves with cannabis. So I'm very sad that the doctors in Romania still don't have like the voice as you have here, and I really need your help. This is what I'm trying to, I mean, Professor Barnes already knows me, and I think that I convinced him already, because I want to mention that on the 22nd of November, Hannah and Professor Barnes will come to Romania. We will actually have a debate in the parliament. So it's very important for me to know, for you to know that you have good people here and doctors who want to help you and, I don't know, convince the authorities. In Romania, we still don't have the medical community so strong. So I really hope that, okay, I can agree that you don't have like the medical evidence still, but you have like, you said something about, oh, so my daughter came here. I mean, she's not very stressed about cameras and about, okay, so she's Maria. Say hi. I'm so sorry for this. It was like, anyway, I forgot what I said because I thought that something bad will happen. Yes, above the parliament. But I want to say that even though you don't have so much medical evidence, you have a lot of patients who have stories, who have like improvements in their health. So it should be like a very strong reason for the medical community to, I don't know, to be more aware that they have to be these professionals with empathy who really want to help their patients and risk it all, even though, as I said before, we don't have so many studies on cancer, for instance, or other diseases. But what I want to say is that we have patients that improve their lives significantly. And some of them, I don't know, maybe just reverse cancer. I heard about this kind of cases. So it's not that we don't have stories, real stories. We are not willing to listen to them and to be braver than that and to speak the truth about the I don't know, the cases that we have, you know?
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.
So I just need to clarify
Super
something
quick,
there.
Sunil, yep.
Like, there are lots of stories like this, but there is not, you know, hardcore evidence here, and that's what we need to build. I don't want to be a party pooper, but we do need to build that evidence, and the only way of doing that is by doing this in a medical way. You know, it's not going to the legacy market; it's coming to us.
Cool. I'm just
But
gonna.
you should be involved. I mean, I agree, but the doctors should be involved. Like they should have the voice, not the authorities, not the politics. So this is what I wanted to say.
Cool. Clark, you wanna?
I think it's interesting to hear about what's happening in Romania and interesting to hear about the context in comparison to how things happened here. And I truly believe it's the patients that led this movement. It's the parents of patients that led this movement. It's the patients that are the experts. We did it before any doctors helped us. We learnt it before any medical professionals were willing to talk to us. We put our lives on the line, went on national TV telling everyone, hey, I'm a criminal. We did that. That's the only way that changed. It was the power of patience that made that happen. And you're right. The next step for patients is to get your prescription, is to enforce your rights. We don't need to fight anymore. We have our rights. We won. We won. Cannabis-based medicinal products were rescheduled. We now do have legal access to those products. We can take those out and about. We can go into our communities. We can talk to people like we could never do before. And we can say, hey, look, have you seen legal cannabis before? It's just here. And they go, what? I didn't know about that. And the world slowly changes. And we do need the doctors on side. We do. But don't make any mistake. This movement is led by the patients for the patients.
Yeah, thank you. Emily.
I just need to say something that I think is really important as well, and I can only talk about my experience in paediatric epilepsy, but we pay £1,300 a month for Clover's prescription. We don't get support. They don't help us with dosing. I have to go to fellow parents for help. I have to decide what I give my daughter because we do not get our money's worth. We don't have a variety of products. We don't have... None of these people actually stick their neck out to help us and treat our children. They're just giving us a piece of paper and taking our money. And that's all a prescription really is. It's just keeping you out of jail.
Yeah. Thank you, Emily. Yes, that's a good point. I am conscious of time, and we've kind of very easily talked, so I just want to give an opportunity to anyone in the crowd who would like to ask a question.
One thing I've noticed as a prescribed patient compared to the legacy market is the difference in oils, and it's a question to Sunil because you mentioned oil. I was getting prescribed oil until I did some calculations and I realised the difference. You know, the difference between flour on the prescribed market and the legacy market isn't huge. The difference between the oil on the prescribed market and the legacy market is insane. It's literally 4 times the price, maybe. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts on that, and how can that be changed to actually reflect it more? Because I found personally the oils to be a bit useless. I don't know, you know, obviously everyone's got different conditions. I've been using it for fibromyalgia, but the flour was way more effective. And I'm just wondering, is there anything being done? Because also in the method of the oil, it's like mixed with a carrier. It's different to what people are used to on the legacy market, something like RSO. I'm just wondering if the oils will be reflected.
See what you want to say that?
So I don't know which oil you started off with. I mean, cost-wise, as more and more patients are prescribed it, I think the cost will fall. At the moment, it's like making a tiny bit of oil. So the cost for the person who's producing it, going through all the rigmarole of getting it certified for a pharmaceutical-grade product, then getting it imported, getting the MHRA to certify it, getting it to a pharmacy, the pharmacy then dispensing it. There's a long process there that's in place at the moment. Costs are falling. You know, they're falling all the time. They've fallen over the past few weeks, I've heard. So that will catch up. I mean, I don't know the legacy market, but what some patients have said to me is that they've not been able to reproduce the same effect time after time. Or, you know, I've taken 1 drop of this and that really was really effective. I've tried something else and it was a bit thicker or darker or it was contaminated with something, and I couldn't take that. I suppose what I'm saying is we just need to work together to get to that point where, okay, the issues that are concerning you are voiced to licensed producers, so then they're forced to lower it, and me as a doctor then is educated that that's the case, because otherwise I wouldn't know that it's 4 times the price, and then we can have that discussion with the licensed producers too. So it's opening up the doors to these conversations, and that's probably what today's about as well.
Yeah. I think as those supply chains become more sophisticated, and hopefully we have some local producers in the UK, so there's less costs in actually getting it from, you know, the source to the patient. I think we've got time for 1 or 2 more bags.
Sorry, just picking up on what, the lady with the epileptic child and the guy with the MS was saying, that to buy these products from your local drug dealer seems to be more safer than having to go to a doctor who's prescribing these with no follow-up. I mean, these people seem to know what works for them. So why are these doctors charging so much for these prescriptions without support? Now, I just find that it seems to be that they're being forced into the prescription side just under the caveat so they don't get arrested or lose their children, which is ridiculous. And I want to know how these doctors are effectively saying, look, if you come to us, we'll legalize your habit. And it's not actually a habit, it's a medication that they're getting effectively over the counter. So I want to know why, when you've got this Cancard that says that you can hold it to say that you can take medication legally, why can't anybody who has to turn to a drug dealer, so to speak, have the Cancard and say, look, I'm using it for my particular issues without having to go to a doctor? Stop ripping people off. Because I've spoken to all these people. I'm a clinician, I'm not a doctor, but I'm well versed to prescribe them. But what I've heard time and time again is, if you're not a doctor, you can't prescribe it, which I think is bang out of order when you've got drug dealers who are providing a service under the counter and a better service.
Yeah, thank you. I guess it's all about governance and standards, and the frameworks on both sides are kind of not there yet, and hopefully are improving, but there's a long way to go. I'm conscious Sunil's talked a lot. I don't know whether Emily or Clark, you've got any reflections on that previous point.
I think from our point of view, it's knowing what's in it. And even though the products that we can get prescribed, we know less than we want to, we request COAs all the time, we don't get them. We're trying to dose very, very fine lines all the time. And it's really, really hard when you're not a doctor to be doing all these things. I didn't sign up to be a pharmacist. And every time I walk into her doctors or her paediatrician or her neurologist, they humour me, quite frankly, because I'm that mum and I think I just scare the crap out of them. But they don't agree with me. They don't agree with what I'm doing. So I'm doing it all blindfolded, really, and I'm trying to do the best out of a bad situation. And the only way I see forward at the moment is giving her a product where I know what's in it. The thought of giving her something that was so unknown frightens the life out of me, because that could kill her. It really is that simple. So it's such a fine balance, and it's really hard.
Kirsty, have you got...
That should not be the case. It's so important for clinician-led medicine to be available, and unfortunately, that's not the case for everybody. In terms of Cancard, I mean, we're an organisation that doesn't want to exist. We shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be having to do this. We should have clinician-led medicine available to people on the NHS, or at least free of point of access, so that people don't have to be in this situation, because it's frankly a joke. That's just not how it should be. So the Cancard is a means to an end, but we don't want to exist, and we certainly don't want people fighting like this hard. It's already difficult enough, the situations that you're in, let alone having to fight and find things on the illicit market that you want to be standardized product and the same every time. So
Absolutely.
I think it's important to say that the clinics are doing the best they can with a really bad set of rules. So as patients, we need to try and have some understanding. There's pervasive stigma around our plant. That is throughout our society, throughout our planet, throughout our world. That is a big problem that is preventing many, many conversations from even happening. My next project, I'm looking to try and tackle this stigma head on. We've got a problem with skunk in this country, where skunk is used to demonise and marginalise our community, to make everything out to be evil and bad. All cannabis is skunk and it's terrible, right? It's not. That's not the truth. We need to get past this pervasive misinformation, we need to get past the madness, the skunk madness, and we need to really realise that this is medicine for everyone if it's used in the right context, with especially helpful with a medical professional's help. Having a medical professional on your team is really good. I just want to say one last thing, and that is that my son, unfortunately, was born and he nearly passed away. He had to have a life-saving operation within 24 hours of being born. It was the hardest thing I've ever been through. But the NHS saved his life. They did. They saved his life. Cannabis medicines is just as life-saving to the children that need it as his 2 operations were to him. And the NHS needs to get behind it because our children need cannabis.
Thank you. Thank you, Clark. So I think we've got one last question. Mags, am I allowed that?
Yeah, from Zoom.
Yes, from Zoom.
We've actually got quite a few. If any of the panellists, after you've finished, want to come and type an answer or tell me to type an answer, I'll let our Zoom audience know. Yes, so the one question that we have picked out from the Q&As is about stock issues. What, if anything, can we patients do to help with inconsistent stock issues?
Bugger all. I
Kirsty,
mean,
do you want to take that?
patients shouldn't be left to be dealing with stock issues.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, but it's the clinics, y'all. Where are y'all? The LPs and that. Like that's the supply chains need to be robust.
Yes.
And it shouldn't be patients. That's a great question, but I feel terrible that somebody's having to ask that.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be down to patients. There's nothing you should have to do to change stock issues with your own medicine, you know?
Absolutely.
It really should be the industry.
Yeah.
Well, not everybody can. Not everybody can, unfortunately. I kill tomatoes, you know.
You and me both. Cool. Okay, thank you all. I think we need to wrap it up there. I really appreciate you all joining us here. Please, can you give a round of applause to our wonderful panelists?